We're ready for the start. They're off.
Hi, everybody. Jeremy Plonk from First Bet, joined by Jeff Siegel. It's the big game week. Can we even say the S word this week, Jeff? Is it legal anywhere?
You mean the Super Bowl?
That one,
I just said it. Actually, I researched that. You can call it the Super Bowl as long as you're not using it for an advertisement. In other words,
right.
we can talk about it because we're not promoting anything. We're not saying in our Super Bowl special at Express, but you can't do that. But if we're just talking about the game, it's legal. We're okay. We're safe.
Just off camera left is my lawyer. He's shaking his head. I think we're okay to proceed with the podcast. So we're here this week to talk about 5 hot topics in racing, as we are each and every week. A lot going on last weekend at Gulfstream, at Santa Anita, around the country. But it is Super Bowl week, and there are some things that we've learned watching television over the last couple of days that I think might apply to the horse racing industry. And that's where we're going to get started with our 5 hot topics this week. A supersized series of events. If you've been watching anything in the NFL over the past couple days to the last week, we had a Pro Bowl that has been reimagined, if you will, with flag football. Last night, a media day set. They have made the Super Bowl, which is a 4-hour game, Jeff, into a 12-hour television extravaganza on Sunday, into a complete week of entertainment lining up to the big game. It's something similar we see Kentucky Derby week in the horse racing industry. But I got to say, like last night's media day, we're getting all the players out in public with a press conference covered on multiple channels. It was intriguing to me. I caught myself watching it as much as I could, and I couldn't wait for the announcers to get off the air and let the players talk. There were too many announcers wanting to speak last night, but when you got to hear the players and the coaches, I thought it was fascinating, and it makes me want to watch the game more.
Well, then they've reached the target audience for you then, because that's the entire purpose of these things, is to try to build up a week in advance, and then finally on Sunday have all kinds of records broken, people watching. I watch the commercials too, so I mean they're neat. But I mean it's a good thing, and I don't know. This seems like it's building every year. I remember the very first Super Bowl in 1966 was played in the Coliseum. I could have gone for practically nothing. Instead, I went to the library. I was in high school, thought I'd be better served studying, which was weird because I never went to the library. That one day, I remember going to listening to it. I didn't care that much. And I don't care that much this year, quite frankly, because I'm one of these guys that if my team isn't in it, I don't really care. I don't even know who to root for. Now, the Rams, obviously, on my team last year, that was great. Yeah. And you probably have a rooting interest one way or the other. I imagine you're rooting for your Oklahoma quarterback with the Eagles. I mean, that's something that you can hang your hat on.
Well, look, there are more Oklahoma Sooners in the Super Bowl than any other university. We're loaded 2/5 of the Chiefs' offensive line with Orlando Brown and with Creed Humphrey. You've got the Eagles. You got Lane Johnson. 3 of the linemen in this game, 3 of the 10 starting linemen in the Super Bowl, a part of the Bob Stoops era at Oklahoma. So, yeah, I've got some rooting interest in the game. Yeah. Of course, Jalen Hurts as well. No coincidence with the color choice.
Yes, week, exactly. So,
but
I don't have that. I was going to say, I don't have that interest. I'll watch, but that's all I'll do.
Circling it back to the track, though, we see Kentucky Derby week. It was announced this week that they're going to add 50 Tuesday, which is 502 is the area code in Louisville, to become the day for locals to go to the Kentucky Derby. It just adds to that schedule with Thurby added. We all laughed at Thurby. Nobody thinks the name's great or anything like that, but the crowds are up to 50,000 on Thursday at Kentucky Derby week. It used to be when I first started going to the Derby, they called the Kentucky Oaks Louisville's Day at the Races. The locals all went to the Oaks. Well, the Oaks has exploded to be bigger than a Kentucky Derby was just 15, 20 years ago. So you got Derby Day, you got Oaks Day, you got Thurby. Now they're adding the 50 Tuesday. There's a lot going on, and even events around the city of Louisville on Derby week. It's a good pattern, and it goes to show what the NFL's doing this week is similar to what the Kentucky Derby is doing, and I think that's a good note that we're on the right track.
I think they do a great job, Churchill Downs, for the Derby week. I've been to a number of derbies, not recently, but back in the early 2000s. I think I must have gone like 8 or 9 straight. and we'd get there. I was working for HRTV, so we would get there early in the week, and there was always something going on, whether it's a steamboat race or a balloon race or something. And the cards were usually pretty good, and it's got even better since then. So I'm all for these kinds of days. It works at Louisville because a lot of people are coming to that city that wouldn't normally get there, and it gives them an inducement to get there earlier, which the hotels are thrilled about. So, I think it's great. I would, if I were to go again for whatever reason, I would definitely take in the entire week, and I think a lot of people feel that too.
And the NFL's playing the long game with this, right? They're trying to build a fan base. They're trying to build young people. They're supporting flag football initiatives around the world, getting the flag football game into the Olympics. I mean, that is to create football fans, just like the NBA, when they created the WNBA, was to create female basketball fans, not necessarily a professional basketball league. It's developed and it's grown into where it can be profitable on its own. But even when it wasn't profitable, the WNBA served to create female fans for basketball. It's a global initiative. And racing, look, we don't have the money to do those kind of things, I don't think. But there are a couple things going on already in racing that are very interesting and would be very interesting beyond the niche of horse racing fans. I want to bring up two of them. One of them is coming up this coming Tuesday. It's the annual charity basketball game. The Holy Angels, middle school kids in the San Gabriel Valley playing against the jockeys. It's a charity basketball game. But Jeff, this is something that would be of interest to people. When we talk about a flag football game of NFL players, I mean, the kids against the jocks, I mean, this would actually make good TV. I think it's something that could have some success to it. And hopefully our buddy Kurt Hoover can coach up another victory. I know Kurt's been involved in this game for a long time. This is the 50th anniversary of this game. It does a great job raising money for the school and for charity. But this doesn't necessarily just have to be a charitable event. This could be something that gets a little bit of buzz.
I agree. I mean, it's a fun thing. And I think Kurt might be involved again. He's an old high school basketball player himself. In fact, a little known fact is that apparently Kurt either played with or coached Todd Pletcher when he was out here, when he was a high school player. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the connection is, but yeah, I do think that it's something that we could promote, and we try out here. LA though, it's just hard, things that work in Louisville don't always work here, but
right, but it could be replicated anywhere, right? I mean, you talk about the Gulfstream jockeys. I mean, any racetrack playing a game against their local community. It could be jockeys in Oklahoma City from Remington Park playing against a local middle school, that sort of thing like that.
Right.
It's got a chance to get like a little bit of buzz to it. People like uniqueness. The other thing they like, and I heard this a lot with the NFL players saying this over the weekend, is we play a game with a helmet on and people don't really get to see us that much. This is different, where we kind of get to get really involved. And I think this is a way for jockeys who typically are 40, 50 feet away from everybody, wearing a helmet, wearing goggles, to personalize. And I think that could be a good thing. The other thing we see on social media, and if you're at the bar at Saratoga over the summer, is the jockeys playing the karaoke against one another. The competition for the permanently disabled jockey fund. There's Joe Talamo and his Backstreet Boys, if you will, performing a year or so ago. I mean, this is another thing that, like, it's fun on social media and it gets some play for that and it raises good money. But this is something that could become part of an event. And there's no reason that, like, Preakness Week or Belmont Week or Derby Week or Breeders' Cup Week, to have a jockey karaoke competition or something like that where everybody's there. It's not just in some bar, and it's good for charity and things like that, but get more people involved, get some fans involved in something like that. Look, I'm a gambler, and I know I typically say we should only do things that make the next dollar, for the bet. And that's what I spend 99% of my time with. But if it's Tuesday of an event week and you can build the anticipation for the end of the week, I'm all for something like that, right? Somebody who sees Joe Talamo sing on Tuesday night somewhere might want to come out and watch him ride on Friday or Saturday once they get to know him. So I'm for that because it can get somebody out to the track then, versus something after an event or what have you. So I think these are kind of neat things we're already doing. It shows we're kind of on the right track. I just don't think we're crossing all the chords together, we see things being done in other industries that are very similar to things we do. Let's just do them bigger, better, and more connected. And I think we can have some success with it. But what I've seen from the NFL over the past 7 days makes me fairly optimistic about some of the event things we do in horse racing. And maybe we can just kind of, like I say, connect the dots a little bit better.
Well, maybe we'll find out if we've got something extra special planned for Breeders' Cup this year, I should say, here at Santa Anita. Hopefully they got something up their sleeve. I've been to a lot of NCAA tournament weekends, and they do a great job there as well. So you can learn. I mean, there are all kinds of things that you can pick and choose from, and I hope that racing takes advantage of this and builds it, because that's obviously part of advertising, part of promoting, and we need as much of that as we can get.
Let's go to topic 2 this week on It's Official and get back on the track. It was Plastic Fantastic, and if you're wondering what that means, it was all about Charge It. He rang up the bill this weekend at his comeback race at Gulfstream Park. We want to see this race and see what it means moving forward for the Todd Pletcher trainee.
Less than a quarter of a mile to go. Luis Saez can't help it. He just looked over his shoulder. He sees he has a 3-length head start on Vittorio. Clapton on the inside, outside in Tartufo. Just an eighth of a mile to go. Just light handling for Charge It. Vittorio going to try to make him run just a touch, but Charge It's going to come back a winner, and he's going to do it with something in the tank. It's Charge It in front. Vittorio was second, third was Clapton, and Tartufo ran fourth.
So away since that dominant victory last year, that maybe in the Dwyer, people thought this is the second half 3-year-old. Jeff, I got to be honest, we've talked in the last couple of weeks here on the show, like who's going to assume the mantle of the older horse division? And I kind of forgot about Charge It, I mean, out of sight, out of mind. He didn't run in any of the big second half races last year. His comeback race here now, Todd Pletcher says, puts him on a path perhaps towards the Met Mile and the Whitney, kind of those brilliant races. One turn in the Met Mile, a mile and an eighth in the Whitney at Saratoga. Your take on him is maybe becoming the star of the older horse crop.
No reason why he wouldn't be. Son of Tappet, as was Flightline. There's that connection. But Charge It was, after his win by 20 lengths or whatever it was, came up with a foot problem, and they thought they were going to be able to bring him back for the Breeders' Cup perhaps, and that didn't work out. So I hadn't forgot about him, but I didn't realize he was sitting on a race, quite frankly. I hadn't checked his recent works, and when he showed up in the entries, I said, oh great, I can let's embrace him and see how he comes back. I thought he won without being knocked about. I thought he won with something left. I thought that was exactly what they wanted. The number was strong. It was a legitimate race. And for me, Charge It now is on track to be maybe I'm not saying he's as good as Flightline, but maybe he can do similar things this year. And pointing from the Met Mile, I'm not sure he's not better than maybe his best trip would be around one turn. His only prior 2-turn race prior to this race was when he was a somewhat self-troubled second in the Florida Derby. Turns out maybe that wasn't the greatest race of all time, but and this obviously an allowance race doesn't prove a whole lot. But I do think Charge It on his best day, if he can just stay healthy and mature mentally and get a little bit more professional, he's got a chance to absolutely dominate this division this year.
His second dam, which would be his grandma, was Take Charge Lady. She was super around 2 turns. So maybe the pedigree's there. Maybe he gets to that point where at some point he can show it off around 2 turns. The Whitney would be the kind of race to probably do it. It's a brilliant speed horse race, typically, even at the mile and an eighth trip at Saratoga in the summer. Then you come out of the Whitney and you've got time off. I mean, we might see then Breeders' Cup Classic off a balance of that. But for a horse like this that's just run once since last spring in the Dwyer, we got to kind of hold the phones and pump the brakes a little bit on talking about how far down the line we can get with him. But next stop could be the Met Mile, and we'll see what kind of season Charge It has ahead of him. But he's an exciting re-addition to the older horse crop here this year. Let's go to our third topic this week on the big board. It's our Triple Crown Tracker, and pretty much a weekly topic here as we go through the spring into the Triple Crown season. Let's start by going to the Lewis Stakes, also known as the Bob Baffert Invitational. He had all 4 runners, and we didn't know how this race would shake out. Frank Miramati kind of tells you as they head down the backstretch in the Lewis.
There's been no change. 3 furlongs to run. Arabian Lion to catch, trying to sneak away from Hard to Figure, who's still within a next second. Newgate advancing steadily and willingly on the outside, and Worcester is down at the rail. They have a quarter of a mile to go. Hard to figure, Arabian Lion, but here comes Newgate after them in third. And Worcester trails 3/16 of a mile to go. Newgate on the outside and Hard to figure. Hard to figure has the lead. Newgate trying to get by him second. Arabian Lion is back to third. A 16th to go. Newgate, Hard to figure, tough. Newgate has the advantage though, and it's Newgate to score by about a head. Hard to figure second. Worcester third, Arabian Lion fourth in the Robert B. Lewis.
Interesting, the gallop out there. It was the maiden who really ran well in there. Hard to figure. I mean, or a one-time winner. Hard to figure. Longest shot on the board. Actually galloped out best, even though Newgate had the measure on him. There's been no change.
3 furlongs.
Well, Jeremy, this race earned a 100 buyer number, and that's a very, very strong number, which surprised me. Because visually watching this race live and then watching it on video replays a couple of times, I was not turned on by the race, quite frankly.
I wasn't either.
I mean, Newgate was second in the sham. He got to the leader inside the 16th pole, couldn't get by. Here he's life and death to get behind. Hard to figure with an absolutely gorgeous trip outside in the clear. Never took a speck of dirt in his face. Moved when he wanted to move. Beating a horse who was last seen finishing fifth, beaten 13 lengths in the Bob Hope Stakes at Del Mar. He had a little restricted stakes winning at Los Alamitos. I think Hard to Figure was in just to fill the race, and he actually ran pretty well.
Yeah.
But I'm not, I mean, if you look at Newgate on form, on pure form, he looks okay. Not a 100 buyer type of number to me, but the one when you have a 3-year-old that earns that kind of figure this time of the year, you're supposed to be okay. He's a top 5. He's a top this. He's a Baffert. I'm sorry, I didn't get that feel for it, and time will tell. The funny thing about it is, I liked Worcester going into this race, even though he was a maiden. The problem with Worcester is he's a one-pace grinder. You can't ride him like a turf horse. So when Hernandez took him behind horses and sat, and then said, okay, at top switch, I'll blast home. That's not this horse. He has to make an extended run, kind of like what Newgate ran. So I don't know if Worcester's good enough to win a grade 1 or anything like that, but he's certainly good enough to win a stakes, but you got to ride him right, and that was not the way to ride Worcester. As for Newgate, he was ridden perfectly in the clear. But I didn't see a lot of energy galloping out.
No,
maybe he's a better horse than I'm giving him credit for. Maybe he's a better horse than the numbers give him credit for. But I don't think the Kentucky Derby winner is coming out of this race, regardless of points or not points, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the Lewis field was 3 for 14 lifetime coming into it. 3 for 14 lifetime for the entire field. The winner had lost 4 straight. It was a complete change of tactics, and Baffert said that Frankie Dettori wanted to take the horse off the pace and see if he could make a run versus not finishing when he's up closer. That works in a 4-horse field when you train all 4 horses. It's almost like your buddy Mick Cronin running a play in practice at UCLA, right? With no defense or a couple coaches holding bags up or something like that. It's one thing to kind of run the play. It's another thing when there's defense on the court, right? And so can Newgate do that in a real race that has 8, 9, 10 horses, competitors not from the same barn, jocks riding against each other, not worried about they're going to catch hell for, hemming in another stablemate, that sort of thing like that? Can Newgate show that change of style in a real race, in a truly run race? That's still to be determined. So he had everything set up. Like I said, it's like running a play in practice, and he did it well, but he's still got to do it again. I don't buy, the number. We shall see. Let's go to.
By the way, for the record, Mick won a race on Sunday at San Antonio,
and that was a real race.
Yes, so that was as good as beating Washington State. Okay, moving along.
Let's go to the Holy Bull now. This was a race that has more diversity to it. Obviously, not 4 Bafferts, a little larger field. Some horses coming from different venues. A lot of people expected the Giant Mischief to run a big race. It did not work out that way for the Dale Romans trainee. Instead, it was Rocket Can.
They round the far turn. The pace picks up, and Legacy Isle shoves the neck on top. In tight, West Coast Cowboy from the back. Shadow Dragon is underway. Rocket Can let go in the red colors as they run to the top of the stretch. It's Rocket Can who comes away with the lead. Toward the outside, Shadow Dragon with an upset threat. Cyclone Mischief needs to do better than that. Legacy Isle is next, and they're at the top of the stretch. Rocket Can tries to finish it up. Shadow Dragon takes aim. 16th to go. It's Rocket Can responding on the outside in Shadow Dragon. They come to the finish. It's Bill Mott. It's Junior Alvarado again. It's Rocket Can to win the Holy Bull.
Jeff, Rocket Can won it, and afterwards, I'm sure Junior Alvarado was looking for a massage. I mean, he was in the bike riding like crazy for like 3 furlongs out on this one. At the top of the stretch, the way he kind of made the move and assumed the lead, you thought Rocket Can would probably just go on with it, and he ran wide on both turns. So we give him credit for that. But this wasn't the visual kind of like inspiring performance that sometimes we see in a race like the Holy Bull. So I'm still looking around at Gulfstream. What about you?
Well, Shadow Dragon, who was actually second in this race, it had 2 prior starts, a state-bred maiden win by a half length or whatever it was with a 59 buyer, and then he got beat 15 lengths in a stakes race at Aqueduct back in October.
Yeah,
that's who he beat. So the buyer number comes up a very low 82, which would be a moderate maiden number, just moderate. So I don't know how good this race was. Going in, it didn't look all that great to begin with, so I wasn't surprised that it came out weak. I'll give Rocket Can credit for winning and being by Into Mischief and out of a mare by Tappet. He is supposed to be a good horse, and his form was improving gradually. And I can't knock the win, other than it was pretty slow and he didn't beat much. The one takeaway that I got out of this race was the horse that I like, Cyclone Mischief. I mean, he ran terrible, but he broke run, and Gaffleone just absolutely guzzled him back. And I really think the horse got mad. I mean, he was trying to run. He was between horses. And about into the far turn, he was still blocked. And I think the horse said, forget it. You know, I'm not running today. You don't want me to run, I'm not going to run. And I wouldn't completely throw him out. Now, he might be better around one turn, and you could make some, conclusions. But when I saw that, I know that horse was beat before they hit the half-mile pole, just because of of the tactics. So it let it open for a horse like Rocket Can, who switched off nicely and went on what he was supposed to do. And it was a professional win. And I'm sure there's a decent race out there for him somewhere, certainly bred like he is. But I'm not, again, I want to say the same thing about this race that I said about the Lewis. I'm not thinking the Kentucky Derby winner is coming out of this race.
Yeah, and I think I misspoke. It's a Giant Mischief, Cyclone Mischief, of course, the favorite going into that race. So if we didn't find the Derby winner on the main event Saturday at Gulfstream Park, maybe the undercard is a place we should at least peek under the rocks. The Swale Stakes at 7 furlongs was run a few races prior to that, and it was General Jim wearing down the heavy favorite.
Less than a quarter of a mile to come. It's Super Chow in front. General Jim takes aim and starts to gain. Now there's an eighth of a mile to go. Super Chow trying to gut it out for another furlong now. General Jim within a neck. General Jim right alongside. Super Chow digs, but General Jim's got him. And General Jim and Jockey Louis Saez to win the Swale by a length in the end. Super Chow second, 6 ahead of Two of a Kind third. Keanu is fourth in 1:23 and 1. Less than a quarter.
Now, the reason we leave. Here we go. The reason we left that up so long was to see a little bit of the gallop out, because that's kind of the point I want to make on General Jim. He made the move. He got past the sprinter. He kind of was finished at the wire, and then actually the sprinter galloped out a little bit in front of him. He made one move. He also kind of has that turfy up and down action, not a real skipper over the dirt. He's had previous form on the turf. He ran in the Central Park Stakes. Shug had him as a turf miler, middle distance turf horse last year. I get it. They won the Swale. They won on the dirt. But this horse runs like a turf miler. I think there's a turf miler in him. He's got that one quick turn of foot. He makes the burst, and then you hope the wire gets there. And that's kind of the way turf milers run. He really, to me, looks like General Jim, a horse who's going to be a good turf miler down the road. But off this win in the Swale, nobody excited anyone in the Holy Bull Stakes. You could see this horse move on and try the Fountain of Youth in the Florida Derby subsequently with General Jim. Your thoughts if they try to go along with him on the dirt?
Well, he had the rail this day, and then he got him off the rail, so he had no dirt in his face, which was a good way of riding him. I thought he could win this race, and he got the perfect ride, I thought, from Saez to avoid having to get stopped and all that other stuff. So I like the win, and he has won 2 turning, and he has won from off the pace. But a lot of grass horses will run a lot farther on the grass than they will on the dirt. They'll have a better punch. I think, though, being by Into Mischief, not of a mare by Curlin, and having given a $850,000 for him as a yearling, I think the connections are probably going to give him another chance somewhere to prove that he's not up to this level. He's got a decent foundation. He's run 6 times already, so it's not like they're going to blow his mind or anything by rushing him into stakes competition. I don't know whether he's up to winning a Fountain of Youth type of race. Although if you had him and you watched the Holy Bull, you might say to yourself, I can beat those horses, So I we'll see. But right now, as long as he comes out of the race in good shape, this was his first race with blinkers. You could always point to that saying, see, he's a blinker horse. And you can always talk yourself into anything if you want to. But I wouldn't be, based on his pedigree and the fact that he earned, I believe, a 90 buyer number, which was legit. I might be tempted to try him. I would probably take the path of least resistance with him. And if there's a biggie going to show up in the Fountain of Youth, and I'm not sure, I'm sure there will be, then maybe you look elsewhere. But he's okay. I think I don't know, but he deserves one more shot at it.
Yeah, Forte could be pointed towards the Fountain of Youth. The good thing is if you take the shot and it doesn't work out, you've got all those races. You got the Crown Royal Turf on Derby Day. You got the Belmont Invitational Derby, Saratoga Invitational Derby, the Penn Mile, which is a rich race for 3-year-old turf milers. All would fit after finding out you're not a long-distance dirt horse and not a Derby horse. So there are plenty of chances to rebound and recoup with a horse like General Jim. Okay, so if the Derby horse wasn't in the Fountain of Youth, wasn't in the Holy Bull, maybe not in the Swale, could it have been further on the undercard on Saturday? Tappet Trice said, don't forget about me.
3/4, 111-4. Tappet Trice has a narrow lead. Shesterkin going to make him earn it toward the inside. 1/8 of a mile to go. Tappet Trice has kicked away from Shesterkin. See you back at the barn, he says, as Tappet Trice runs up the score to win by 5 in the end. Shesterkin was second. Live as Life clings to third. Hard to Handle wins the 4th place photo over Emperor's Appeal in 136-2.
And again, we left you see the gallop out in that race because he was a mile in front of everybody and still running strong through the wire. Jeff, to me, this is unequivocally the best performance of a 3-year-old on the card on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. A lot of times we overinflate undercard races when the main events don't dazzle us. So we got to be careful that we don't overinflate this horse too much. But Tappet Trice looked pretty darn good. He's got to prove it at a higher level, but he's moving the right way.
Well, first of all, he's a leggy, lengthy son of Tappet. And he's out of a stakes-winning mare who actually ran in Iowa, but good mares can come from everywhere. She herself, Danza Trice, is a half-sister to Jaywalk, who was Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner, champion 2-year-old filly. So the pedigree's there, and you'd expect it. Being by Tappet, they're not breeding Tappet anything but the best at this stage. But the way he won this race, he settled. He's not speed crazy. He switches off beautifully. He accelerates when you ask him. He's got a long loping stride, obviously in top hands with Pletcher. Wins this race by 8 lengths, does it with a last 8th and 12-1. Gallops out like a horse that's just begging to go longer. This was a mile, but it was a 1-turn mile. So if I had a checklist of all the things I wanted a 3-year-old to have this time of the year, he'd have other than the fact that he hasn't won a stakes yet, but pedigree, style, looks, trainer, numbers, it all adds up, and a pedigree that should allow him to get nothing but better as the distances increase. Now, he's the kind of colt that might show up in the Fountain of Youth. I don't know. Todd's got a lot of options, but for me, of all the 3-year-olds I've seen this year, this is the one that I'm absolutely convinced is going to go right up the ladder, and then we'll find out how much class he has. But Tappet Trice, who was obviously a horse that we previewed a few weeks ago after his maiden win in our Stars of the Future segment, he is a star of the now right now, in the present, I think. Tappet Trice, write him down. He is big time.
2-5 in the Tampa Bay Derby. You heard it here first.
If he runs there, yeah.
Yeah, because if Forte goes to the Fountain of Youth, as all plans have been for months for him to return in the Fountain of Youth, Todd supports the Tampa Bay Derby. They run the Sam F. Davis this coming Saturday, so he gets an extra week rest off the Davis horses going forward towards the Tampa Bay Derby. I think it makes a lot of sense. Here's where we stand on the Triple Crown trackers. We hit Sam F. Davis week, the second week, El Camino Real this weekend as well. The Withers Stakes, which was scheduled for last week, canceled because of cold weather in the Northeast, will be run this weekend. Jeff, there have been 9 races basically on the Triple Crown Trail since December 26th. 4 wins for trainer Brad Cox, 4 wins for Bob Baffert. Neither Cox nor Baffert had a horse in the Holy Bull, so that opened it up for Rocket Can. They have absolutely dominated the Triple Crown Trail to this point.
However, none of the Baffert horses have any points and might find themselves in a different barn pretty soon. I think the best of that lot is Arabian Night, but no absolute guarantee cinch that he'll go a mile and a quarter, as good as he does going a middle distance. And the Cox horses are all solid, but they're not great, not yet, I don't think. So I think it's still a wide open situation and a great spot for the aforementioned Tapit Trice. I think I put him in there with just about anybody. So it's early, and while it looks like Cox and Baffert are dominating so far, no guarantees in early February as to what might shake out for Saturday in May.
Kentucky Derby future wager this weekend. That barn, Brad Cox, well represented amongst the individual entrants in the 40-horse pari-mutuel pool. Of course, the Bafferts all lumped into that all others, and all others is going to get more and more popular after what we saw Arabian Night do in the Southwest. Fourth topic this week is Dream On, with all apologies to the great singer Aerosmith, right?
Aerosmith.
Yeah,
of course.
So let's go to Fun to Dream and see how she is now just forefront in the Filly Mare Sprint division at Santa Anita.
Fun to Dream, looking for racing room now. She just goes by Anacapa at the quarter pole and a long way back to Angel Nadeshiko. Awake at Midnight gets the jump on the favorite Fun to Dream, who's won from the outside. Samurai Charm fights on doggedly, and here's Fun to Dream kicking into high gear at the 8th pole. It's Awake at Midnight and Fun to Dream. Fun to Dream runs right by, and Fun to Dream, another graded stakes victory, wins the Santa Monica by 2.5 convincing lengths.
So Fun to Dream's got a little bit of that Indian Blessing feel about her, who was such a good Filly Mare sprinter for Bob Baffert. She was the second generation Baffert, of course, by Indian Charlie. This one, a second generation Baffert runner by Arrowgate. Jeff, is Fun to Dream stay in this division, follow Indian Blessing, Gamine, horses like that, or do they try something more distaffy?
Well, I think they will. I think, she's now won 6 out of 7. Her one defeat was a troubled runner-up to Awake at Midnight, who beat her that day. But since then, Awake at Midnight has been easily second best. So it's now 2-1 in their personal duel. But Fun to Dream is a Calbred, and Bob's treated her right. He hasn't asked her to do too much too soon. She's a 4-year-old, figuring that if she's by Arrogate, she should get better with age. And rather than get too creative with her, she's been kept in Calbred company. Then she won the Grade 1 La Brea, but again, it was not a real tough Grade 1. Shows up here in the Santa Monica, which is the same type of race, 7/8 on main track. This one a Grade 2. She does the same thing, beating the same horse. I think eventually Fun to Dream will step out of her division. She's pretty fast on numbers. She hasn't had any triple-digit buyer numbers yet, but she tends to do what she needs to do and nothing more. And she always looks like she's got something left at the end. I think Fun to Dream is, there's a lot of races, maybe Oaklawn, maybe she goes down there and tries to win a race down there. I don't know. Or maybe Bob will just stay conservative with her and try to reel off as many wins as he can, because there is nothing that I can find in Southern California that can touch her. And Fun to Dream winning at 7/8 should be every bit as effective over a distance of ground. So sky's the limit for her.
Dream On, your headline. Steven Tyler. I was
Of
going to
course.
say Stephen Perry, and I'm like, no, that's O'Sherry. That's the wrong guy. And I got all caught up. Steven
Yeah.
Tyler, of course.
Right.
Let's go to our fifth and final topic this week on It's Official. It's our Stars of Tomorrow segment, where we're looking at horses coming up out of the maiden ranks since last year's summer boutique meets. We found one in the 3-year-old filly ranks named Clearly Unhinged. She clearly was not, though, in an impressive victory.
They turn for home, and Clearly Unhinged has plenty left. A 3-length lead with 1/8 of a mile to go. Curl Girl, Conquistar, and Cliquish are chasing, but no one's catching Clearly Unhinged. A dominant victory for Clearly Unhinged under John Velasquez to win by 3.5.
This is the way you like to see one win, Jeff. The neck was out, reaching out. This was a nice win. 3-year-old fillies. I mean, are we thinking sprint? Are we thinking try to get this one long? Is it too late to talk Oaks? Where are we at here?
This is a good filly. We had workouts on her at xbtv.com, and I had watched a work within the dark from the gate. And then I watched the Baffert filly, Conquistar, who was 30 cents on the dollar in this race. 2 first-time starters. And I wasn't sure that Clearly Unhinged would beat the Baffert filly, but I was certainly thinking they were 50-50. And one was 4-1, and the other was 30 cents on the dollar. The gamble was pretty easy, especially after she popped the gate from the rail, opened up 2 before the flag went down, as they say. And Clearly Unhinged is a good mover. There's not a doubt in my mind she'll stay in middle distance. She looks like a quality filly, and I think that she has a chance to move right up the ladder. Again, how ambitious do you want to get this early? You can't. Right. I mean, you can run her in an hour as a 2. What's the point, right? So you bring her right back and you run her in a stakes, maybe a listed stakes or somewhere. But I mean, she's got Oaks written all over her. And I know it's a little late, but not that late. Not when you got a filly like this. I think Clearly Unhinged and trainer Michael McCarthy have a right to be thinking that bring anybody on based on this very fast win. 3/4 and 9 flat out and 15 3. And again, doing it without really being set down hard in the final furlong of the race.
Couple mile and a 16th left in the Santa Anita Oaks series before they would have to depart for Kentucky. If they want to wait and try to go 7/8 and stay within the 3-year-old filly division, she'd be a great candidate for the Beaumont at Keeneland in the spring. That's a good 7 furlong race. The Intermischiefs win everywhere, but man, do they really win at
do they ever?
I love them at Keeneland. So Clearly Unhinged could be an early favorite for a race like the Beaumont. But again, she's got a couple options yet at her home track before she'd ever have to hit the road if they want to try to go a little bit longer. That's going to recap and review our 5 topics this week on the big board. We talked about the Super Bowl and how the supersized events in horse racing might benefit from a little bit of popularity of the riders and different events leading up to some of our major races. We talked Plastic Fantastic, Charge It, swipe the card impressively in the 4-year-old return. Our Triple Crown tracker took a look at the Lewis, also Rocket Cans win in the Holy Bull, the Swale win by General Jim, and the Rising Star Tap It Trice for Todd Pletcher. Dream On, Steven Tyler had us looking towards Fun to Dream, Bob Baffert's daughter of Arrogate, who looked absolutely stellar in winning the Santa Monica and is on to bigger and better things. And our Star of Tomorrow this week, Clearly Unhinged for trainer Michael McCarthy, heading towards the 3-year-old filly Stakes Franks in a race very, very soon. That's going to wrap up those 5 topics. They're now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. No bonus topic this week, Jeff. It's Super Bowl week. We've got a lot of great racing. We got 3 major Triple Crown preps. Big day for our friends at Golden Gate Fields, part of the first family of racetracks. At Saturdays, the El Camino Real Derby with a win and you're in for the Preakness. Also, Kentucky Derby qualifying points on the line in the El Camino Real. They'll draw that race on Wednesday. So good luck to Matt Dinnerman and the crew up there in Greater San Fran. Looking forward to a big day this weekend, this Saturday at Golden Gate. So a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, we got a couple of preps, as you mentioned. I think Millie Ball will be up at Golden Gate covering that race for our simulcast network. So we'll have someone there. I'm scheduled to work Saturday here, but I've got a little bit of a under the weather problem here. I got a little bit of a chest cold, so we'll see how I feel. And hopefully I'll be better by then. But a good racing around the country as well. We're getting deeper and deeper now into the Triple Crown series prep races, and every week we've got 1 or 2 or more, and it's really fun to to see, how things shape up. Because right now, it's pretty well wide open. I know that there are a lot of people who have opinions right now, and I'm not sure. I think you may have mentioned, is there there is a future book bet this week, right? Yeah. Okay. So there it is.
Friday through Sunday.
Exactly. So back your opinions with that if you'd like. But again, good racing, and we'll see you again on Friday when we'll be handicapping the key races on our first call show.
We'll get the man a hot tea, but between now and then, get some rest, Mr. Siegel. No late night basketball for you. I want you in bed by 10. Get the hot tea, and we'll talk to you again on Friday as we handicap a big weekend of races. On behalf of everybody with First Technologies, my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Good luck at the races, and as Jeff said, we'll talk to you on Friday with the First Call podcast.